So today, let's start from a little bit of story, playing those gramophones, those circular discs, which had our music stored, and we listened to those old songs. So from there, we remember floppy disks, we remember our tapes, our video tapes, and dot dot. So then we came to CD and DVD, and alongside there were hard disks, very big, large hard disks, the size of the room that IBM used to manufacture. And so technology becoming smaller and smaller, and micro to mini, but the power has increased. The computing power and the storage power, it is getting massive and massive. Otherwise, how can we imagine that the current uh, modern cars, so modern 5G networks, the modern data, our smart homes, smart cities, smart country, our whole universe is getting smart. So for that, we need huge storage, which is not possible unless we manage it properly. Because nothing can be infinite. There cannot be infinite computing power or infinite storage possibility. So what we are doing, we need proper management, and apart from that, we also need to look after the security. Today I saw one tweet. Uh, it was about one 7.68 terabyte disks, and the company was Kingsoft, and Kingsoft is pioneer in encryption and decryption technologies. And then they had shared just in the morning, as if I am going to talk about it now. And it was really interesting. While looking at the security aspect of our data. That's why regarding data, we have in Europe, GDPR, we all know. So any European unauthorized or unethically, like, and then we have to delete it after they complete their transaction. It's a big document, GDPR law. And similarly, we have different laws in different countries. Like in United States, we have HIPAA, 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 so that the patient data is not breached. But now, due to Corona, our data is being so it's all bees. Actually, so these bees uh, helped create a new revolution in 2010 as big data. Actually, what we were doing was big data previously. From statistical point of view, from mathematical point of view, from computer science, actually it was all big data. So when we studied in theory of computation, we see about uh, head and tape. So head and tape is the basics of storage system to store the data, to store the 0 and 1. And there are AND, NAND, OR, dot, dot, XOR. So all kind of gates that we studied are most essential part of big data storage technologies. Why? Because right now our hard disks has revolutionized into SSD, and we know the previous hard disks used to have what previous hard disks is that most of the commonly used hard disks that has head, but SSD does not have any head. It's basically volatile memory, so that can be erased and reprogrammed. So it's also called that those SSD drives are more durable and very less failure rates. If we go to the cloud and use those SSDs, it is expensive than the normal disks.
Yeah.
I think most of you have used it. So uh, coming from there, Now we go to Big Data Pros. What are the main benefits of Big Data? Decision making. Yes, we can make good decision with it. Productivity will become quite high if you go to big data systems. And about the cost, we are able to reduce the cost if we know how to manage big data and the storage systems. Otherwise, we will go bankrupt. Many of the companies go bankrupt because they don't know how to manage big data storages in the cloud or within their own company vicinity. Uh, and we will have great customers. Yeah, we do have, but we need to validate and prove that, okay, we are doing it correct. Otherwise, there is a big saying we all know, yeah, about the big data. It's like sex. Everyone thinks everyone is doing it right, but no one is doing it correctly. So most of them fails. And then they would have no customer and the company vanishes. Another is fraud. So we have to identify the fraud and remove it using big data, and we are able to do that. Actually, most of the top banks of the world, they now know by using big data who is a fraud client. So they don't give a penny loan to them because of big data analytics. So that's why it's important. Then revenue cycles. So going into big data storage systems and using it properly helps us on revenue much higher than the normal limited your computing practices. Yeah, really, and that's important. Revenue is very important, and it also adds to agility and innovation. So we become more agile. Oh, I need this much of space, use it and pay it. I don't need, remove it. So you save money, you save a lot of cost in that. Otherwise, if a company say has limited potential of gigabyte, why do you go and buy multi-terabyte system? It would take say 100 of years to fill all that. So that kind of logical decision making, the computing potential that big data engineers can give. They will tell you how much storage to place, how to compute, and the analytics involved. That's why it's so necessary. And then delivery. It's the world of competition. I have to deliver fast and fast. So as incoming data grows exponentially, I also need similar kind of self-replicating, self-expanding, self-correcting, self-repudiating, self-remediating solutions. So I can meet the growing competition, the growing challenges, and deliver in time. That's most important actually. And it is a difficult job. You need all the experts. And I've already looked here. Many experts are coming here. Wow, that's cool. So what are the cons of big data? So let's say disadvantages. So number one is manpower. Like I said, I see many experts here who are related to big data, storage, cloud computing, and all that. They are very rare, very few in Nepal. Actually, in all over the world, I can say. But since we are talking about Nepal, let's concentrate here. And I guess you are joining here, my friends. Oh, thank you so much. So, in disadvantage of big data, number one is manpower. You won't find proper manpower. Now, if you ask my little son, he says, "Oh, I'm a big data boy." If you ask our daughter, she says, "I'm a big data girl." Everyone says that because no one knows it. What is it? If you ask a company, they say, "Oh, we are a big data company. Oh, we are artificial intelligence. We have machine learning, deep learning, da, 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 da. Oh, we have automatic chatbots." But if you have tried talking with the chatbots that nebulous companies have put, you will laugh. It's a simple database system. Just you ask, they give you a menu, you click, and then you see the results. Is that automatic chatting? No, these are not chatbots. But people don't know how to use big data, how to store the data, how to analyze big data. That is another big challenge. We have to work really hard. And another is culture. So companies don't want to go against the old culture, old tradition. But we should have that strong heart to remove the old culture and transform ourselves into big data. Then comes compliance. So we have to be compliant in so many things. Like I started in the beginning. So security, your privacy, just to name a few. And being compliant is very difficult. Then comes cybersecurity. See, oh my God, there are so many ransomware. When we up a node in the cloud, those viruses know, oh, this has been up. Let's try and attack it. We can experiment it by starting up a node in the cloud with a honeypot. And then we can see in that honeypot how many attacks we get.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why cybersecurity is so difficult to, implement. And then speed. So when I have 10 clients, okay, 100 clients, okay, 1,000 clients, okay. But when it exceeds 1,000, then I need big and big storage. Means I will be slower. Because if we have a big sea and we have to fish there, it's difficult in big sea. In a small pond, we can fish easily. Now, at last, we have cost of implementing. Don't think that cloud is cheap. No, you can look at Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Google, and dot. And again, everyone goes to Alibaba. Oh, Alibaba, let's go. Alibaba has Apsara system, Apsara database system. Let's use that. Oh, that looks cheaper. But either it's Amazon or Alibaba or Google or neither. On the overall, when we use something there, we have to pay. That's the basics. If I pay less in internet bandwidth, I will be paying more in proxy. I will be paying more in cyber security. I will be paying more in SAM. So that's how it is not that too cheap, but it helps us gain more by implementing properly. Otherwise, like I said, many companies go bankrupt. So let's go to more detailed technical part of storage systems. So in order to create redundancy, we have RAID systems, RAID. So RAID 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, dot, dot. So, and then, so those RAIDs, they help us, okay, if RAID 0 goes down, 1 is up. If 1 goes down, 2 is up. Okay, so so we can monitor it and use it to our advantages. So I'll go to second point, replication. So in order to replicate data here and there, like we know about SDFS blocks. So SDFS means Hadoop-based file systems. So those file systems, so that allow multiple concurrent reads. So like I said earlier, in our disks, while we read the data, we have head and here is tape. So head and tape. So when there are multiple heads, they can do what? Multiple concurrent reads. That's the concept that theory of computation teaches us. So we are able to what? Speed up things with multiple concurrent reads. Now, and then we have to replicate accordingly. Otherwise, if this fails and I am reading from the failed block, what will happen? It will crash. Then, in order to implement that, we have parity bits. So parity bits are like if you say, okay, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, so like that. So you have some output parity from 8 bit. So if you have 8 bit of data, you have 1 bit parity. Say the parity is 0 or 1. But if those original data of 8 bits, if one of them changes, then the parity changes. That's the beauty of it. So we know, oh, it's bad. It has been changed. We know it. We hear that. The same parity bits are used for achieving redundancy in the storage system. So that's called eraser coding. So the eraser coding system, we'll get into detail later on. But for now, we saw RAID, the replication system of SDFS, and then eraser coding system using parity bits. So that is used in RAID 5 and RAID 6 level, and in SDFS also, but where? Elastic computing. Yeah, so elasticity in computing. That's where eraser coding is used. So EC. And then we have other things. So collocation. So we all have heard, oh, collocation. So if it is my database system stored here, so I have collocation server there. Where another, yeah. So if I get earthquake and destroyed here, my collocation can pick it up. So that's how we think. I have also heard that our Nepal government has also have collocation site in Hetauda, and that's yeah, they must have thought about it. Now, so what matters there is we have transfer speed. So from here to the site and from site to the here, we have to consider the transfer speed. And then latency. We observe latency whenever we are transferring something, either internet bandwidth or even transferring files from one folder to another, either transferring files from our CPU to memory and memory to hard disk and hard disk to memory and CPU, like that. So that is, there is one system we can see that helps in it is Apache Ignite system. So much of the systems are Apache, which started from open source and are growing, still growing and growing. So Ignite system. Now we go to another term that is called sharding. So shards, we create database shards, okay? So different type of sharding we do so that we retrieve and write data easily without losing much of the speed or time in there. And then it also helps in improving what? Redundancy and replication, depending upon how we use it, or your database administrator will help you. So that is quite difficult in MongoDB. So MongoDB does not have our previous original records of rows and columns. It's document. It's the data is stored as everything as whole document, and then we query it, and then it pulls out the results. But I tell you honestly, when I used to work in Google-like searching system, MongoDB was 1,000 times faster than other systems. That is incredible because it puts data in that way. The encryption, the indexing, but sharding is difficult. Now we go to database compression and decompression. So we all know zip file. Zip, WinZip, zip, unzip it. So we'll know it. And then gzip, and then snappy, and then there are other algorithms. LZO, bzip2, and LZEMA. And then this LZO and LZEMA, I have seen it. Awesome. They work perfectly. But we should know where to use it properly, how to use it properly. Otherwise, we lose much of time and space while compressing and decompressing. So I have 1 terabyte file. So if compressing it takes 1 hour, my time is gone. Again, decompressing takes another 2 hours. And then again, it occupies whole terabyte of system. After decompressing, wow, what can I do? Either I should have my applications being able to use in compressed state. Okay. So from code, you decompress and decompressing to memory, not all of them, but in chunks, partial. So that, yeah, you improve your time and space. Otherwise, it's unnecessary doing compressing and decompressing. I'll give you one example of Amazon S3 drive. So when I had used zip file of terabytes, it goes very slow. But same thing, if I did not put in zip drive, but put it in raw file system and then let it go up, it goes very fast. But that zip would save a lot of bandwidth. But after getting the data into cloud, I again needed it to unzip unless my application itself took care of it. Like I said, from compressed system, I use it, then that's a big thing. Otherwise, letting in raw files, just go up into the Amazon S3 drive, that is most faster than sending very big zip file. That's the technology challenge. But we have to handle it properly, when to zip and when to not zip. Otherwise, unzipping in cloud is also not that cheap and that fast. How to put it in a system, either to use RAID or not, but where to use. Like, yeah, if we look at SDFS system, Hadoop-based file system, so there, what do we see? If it's physical co-location server, wow, that's perfect. Although we can make it easy in cloud also, but we need physical disks, and that's its main power actually. And that we can do it in cloud also. We can select it. Hey, thank God it came. So input output per second IOPS, that's the speed with our storage system. So we calculated the IOPS, and in Microsoft has its own drive in Azure, in its Azure cloud system. It has its own drive, and Microsoft claims that that is a million times faster than any other we are talking about IOPS. So Microsoft claims that it has best IOPS into its drives, and then we talked about hyperscale computing, where it is essential, and then we have DAS.
and what I have not written is NAS. So NAS is network attached storage. So there is a network drive that is attached for all of us in LAN within the cloud or outside of cloud, in the private VPN or in the public, to store it there in the network. That is NAS. Now it is DAS, so directly attached system. So those are quite handy, because we have to calculate is, if I have directly attached system DAS or network attached system NAS, and transferring the data storage media, say hard disks or SSD, by a person is cheaper and less time consuming, or transfer everything through the internet. We have to calculate like that, because that's the challenging and computing style and technology actually. That's the smart system of thinking about how to save our money, time, resources, but still attain the same output. So DAS and NAS, they are still important. Directly attached storage and network attached storage. Now we go to NoSQL. So in NoSQL, Hadoop Elasticsearch, we all know it, Apache Spark. Now Hadoop and Elasticsearch basically work on lower level of storage system, say physical disks or similar kind of disks. Let's not go beyond that. Now, in a little bit upper layer, we have Apache Spark. So what does the Spark do is, it stays in a little bit upper layer and arranges, allocates, reallocates resources so that it makes performance 1,000 times better. That's why we need this Spark technologies, a little bit higher layer thing, but it makes our computing with multiple storages, so thousands of nodes easier and 1,000 times faster. Now, if we see the raw drive, so in raw drive is a common physical system. Now, our raw hard drive, we have to think in like that, raw hard disks. And then we have to think what? S3 of Amazon, then Elastic storage, and then GFS, means Google File System. Example, just an example. Like I said, Alibaba has Apsara. Yeah, that's cool. So then we have to look at risks. There is always risks, numerous risks. And main risk is losing data. So data loss. So we have to prevent it. If we go look into our Nepal government GIDC, we see that huge storage. I even asked many of the managers, it is so huge, we cannot fill it in 100 years. Why don't you rent half of it to the private companies? We can also use your storage. And they were laughing. So that's so important. We have to prevent data loss. That's the main risks. There are numerous other risks also. Risks of fire, risks of electric short circuit, dot. And then we all remember risks of zero sector bad, other sectors bad. It happens. Now there is one amazing data that I put you from Amazon. So if we put our data set into Amazon S3 drive, then in 10 million years, out of 10,000 objects, one can crash and get destroyed or get lost. In 10 million years. So that means 99.99999 SLA, service level agreement. In Nepal, I don't know how they manage it, but I know this thing. So in 10 million years, out of 10,000 objects, one can be destroyed if we put it in S3. That's so negligible. So let's go to next slide. So now we all know relational database system, MySQL, SQL Server, and then Oracle, in our time, what? DBase, DBase, COBOL, DB2, Postgres, dot. We always consider that. And when no SQL system, not only SQL, no SQL system revolutionized in 2010, most of them could not pick it up. They could not pick up the speed of NoSQL because of randomness in input of data. Those 7 Bs I talked in the beginning. So 7 Bs of big data. So because of that, you cannot go to structure. How can you go to proper table? So if you have a table, say it happened to YouTube also, if you remember. So when YouTube hit 1 billion users, it crashed because it had not programmed its database for 1 billion users. But in big data, and when we are using NoSQL systems, it can what? Grow both vertically and horizontally. So that's the beauty. That's the beauty of NoSQL. And don't hate relational database systems. Oracle is the last follower of NoSQL. That's why it lost about $50 billion or $100 billion because it could not pick up the NoSQL speed and momentum. It came later. Right now, Oracle has autonomous database system that can replicate by itself, that can redundant by itself, that can do everything by itself. We don't need to do anything, just to import data and it's done. Oracle has produced similar thing before also. So Oracle has got a supercomputer called Exadata. So Exadata means its speed is what? 10 to the power 18 processing per second. So that is such a faster supercomputer. Oracle has it. It's selling it in $100 million. But while coming to NoSQL and big data storage systems, it later failed. Now it is picking up. Just an example. Microsoft was clever. So Microsoft used Azure and connected everything from its SQL server to there. MySQL was later and many had forgotten it, but it has also shown greatest potential of distributed file system, DFS, and distributed database system, and also to the cloud connection, and again replicating like other NoSQL systems. Now it is more or less transparent.
अब सुन्न थाल्छ 3 बजेबाट थियो अहिलेसम्म पाइएन
It's great. It's great. के छैन हजुर हामी चलिरहेछौँ. Okay, so after that we go to scalability. So how scalable is our data storage system? So I start with megabyte. Mega. So mega is used. After that giga. Oh, large. After that tera. Oh, tera. Okay. Then peta. Then hepta. I think peta, hepta, they are 10 to the power 14, 16 like. And zetta is 10 to the power 20, I think. Zettabyte is very, 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 very huge. Zettabyte. And I think going forward, we have gigillon byte. But I don't know. 10 to the power how much. Yeah. So it's growing and growing and growing. So scalability is a big concern. When data grows so much, then what smart engineers, like I see here, friends attending today's webinar. So if they know how to reduce the database size, it is not allowing all data to come in and occupy whole storage system and then go into loss. That's why it's important. So zettabyte, gigabyte, dot. So that's important, the size. And then after that comes availability. So in our database system, availability is so important. Like I talked about 99.999% of Amazon S3. Similar is claimed by Microsoft Azure. Similar is claimed by Google File System. And yeah, and other also claim the same. Everyone claims that we are 99.99% operable. But if we go and look into the actual data center that builds all our Amazon, Microsoft, Google cloud system, we can feel the cold environment there, the dark environment there, and then those disks. So it is very heavy, about 50 to 100 kg. And then in those data centers, and then we carry those, arrange it, and then make perfect storage system for all to use. So that is the physical centers, the data centers. So that are virtualized, and all this cloud is formed. So availability depends there also. Power system there, backup system there, and sometimes we have to call to the data center and say, "Oh, please, can you please switch on my this number of hard disks?" And then they go and switch on it. And please, can you swap it? Can you please shut down it? So all those things happen. So availability is that important. Now comes fault tolerance. So there always are faults. Yeah, in database faults occur. Like I said, if a head go to a tape, and when it reads, if it does not find the thing it is reading, then it will be a fault. It signals error or it crashes. So in order to avoid that, we need tolerance systems built into our storage system, because nothing is perfect. It's all semiconductor chip-based technologies, and when one of the transistor fails, anything can happen. So we need such fault tolerance systems. After that, we need consistency, because when the peaks are high and peaks are low, at all times, we should be able to serve consistently. So there should be no gap. Again, we also need secondary indexing systems. So in NoSQL systems, that's automatically there, like I said previously, because the indexing is automatic. They index the data by themselves, and then secondary indexing is done. What? So we can access data easily. For example, I have one index there, but see, like this document tells, I need to do secondary indexing. What I have this? Okay, I want secondary indexing according to location. So out of 77 districts of Nepal, so okay, I create 77 indexes based on districts. See how fast it is. Otherwise, I go access the data set, yeah, based on the whatever automatic indexing is down there. But if I create secondary indexing, I can reach there faster. Similarly, our brilliant DBAs, database administrator friends, they also do similar for male and female, and again they create age-based indexing. So 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, so like that. So that allows us to access data much faster. Like the Google works, when we do Google search, so if we put proper clues, it gives us the best result. Otherwise, the results are useless. Now, atomicity of data. So we need atomicity, which cannot be violated. So the identity. So that should not be what? Disparaged. Now, consistency, I said now. So isolation. So what is isolation? So that must not be what? Being overwritten by other processes or other data analytics tool. And then durability. So durability means it should not destroyed by itself. It should not be volatile. And we all know these terms, acid, ACID. So traditionally, we have been taught that acid is used in relational database system. But now those NoSQL systems also use it or allows it. And to tell you frankly, the JSON query that we put on NoSQL, we can do it on any of the relational database system these days. So we don't need to go through all the toughness and vastness of NoSQL systems. Now it's transparent. The silos are being removed. Yeah, I've written those names: Oracle, SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, DB2, COBOL. Okay. So let's go to another. So it's the newest thing in today's technology that very few people talk about. So new SQL. So it's a new emerging SQL. It's not only SQL, NoSQL, or it's that relational database system SQL, but it's new SQL. Let's go there. So it's the newest thing I found, and so thought that I must introduce it here to you. So we have application and we have SQL done. So it supports ACID that I just talked about, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So after that, we have concurrency control, non-locking concurrency control. So non-locking. So there are two things in operating system terms. So you lock, you have semaphore lock before you access. Okay, so before you access a thread and deploy a process there, and so that lock keeps it protected from other threads. And now non-locking means what? So it does not obstruct. It does not obstruct while concurrency control is in place. Otherwise, locks are placed and you cannot read. Even in traditional relation database system, if you remember, if you are accessing a certain row by one process, then another process will say, oh no, because that's locked. Now, this new SQL has higher performance per node architecture. So we have like thousands of nodes in the cloud or in the physical system, but this new SQL allows what? Higher performance, higher throughput. Okay. And it has no bottlenecks. Okay. So it's virtually perfect system for database. Otherwise, if you remember, we have bottlenecks everywhere. We talked about even from CPU to memory bottleneck, memory to hard disk bottleneck. So from this computer to that computer bottleneck, network bottleneck, cloud bottleneck, everywhere there is bottleneck. But it has managed to overcome this. So it claims that the new SQL is 50 times faster than OLTP of relational database system. So OLTP, so transaction processing, if you remember those OLTP days, so that is huge. 50 times faster is very huge. And then last, so there are some names. So Hive, you must have heard about Hive. So that Hive, Impala, example of new SQL systems that we can implement in our storage. So Impala, Spark SQL, and Drill. So these are some new names in that allow us to implement new SQL. So next slide, please. Now we go to big data security, privacy, and challenges. And we're gonna talk issues upon them. So number one thing is authentication. My password. my password, and then I saw someone writing in some group, oh, which authentication system do you use? And I said, oh, I use master password system. So that keeps all the password of all the thousands of sites I visit, all the thousands of database systems I connect, all the thousands of apps I use in one single place. So I don't need to worry. Now, the technology is advancing such that passwords may be thing of the past. No password ever needed. I'm not talking only about biometrics, my eyes or my thumbprint or dot dot, but anyway. So they are trying with that system, authentication systems, and it's a big challenge. I know it. Like we all know in cloud, what we do, we create those public key, private key pair, yeah, and then put it in a root, and then log in using that. And why it is important, I'll tell you. So if I have my big data storage system in cloud across thousands of nodes, so node 1 should connect to node 2, and like in a circle. So node 999 should be able to connect to, but node 1 again. So if there is password, whoa, we get doomed. So that's why they are passwordless systems that work with keys. Uh, Now we go to authorization. So if I go into cloud, very clever they are. The cloud systems, Amazon or Microsoft or Google, they know which of the software I have bought, how many storage I have bought, what is my network bandwidth, which proxies I have bought, which security systems I can use. They know all. And I cannot break it and use more and pay less money in the cloud. So that's the thing with authorization. Then we have sandbox. So sandboxing means, so we allow only the qualitative output. If something looks like a virus or malware or ransomware, sandbox should be able to prevent that from our database systems. We can't allow that. So such kind of sandbox, see the challenge. How many challenges are there? Authentication, authorization, sandbox, and then input validation. Oh my God. Yes, I forgot to tell it. Is the huge and worst thing. Input validation is degrading across the our what cloud systems, whichever it is. Oh, it's getting complex. So if I type something, okay, percent, minus, single quote, double quote, as if to hack, most of the systems get validated. And then the input is sanitized and hacking is prevented. But there are many cases you can't do that, because you can use hex characters, you can use other octagonal characters or other print characters or other. So that's a big challenge to overcome and prevent the system from being hacked or cyber security violation. Then the thing we talked in the beginning, encryption, decryption, and cryptography. So to be honest, TBH, everything in cloud is encrypted and decrypted. We don't need to worry much on it. Okay, there are systems, we just use it and it happens. But from big data point of view, if we want to protect our data properly, keep it properly, and serve it to our clients properly, we need to make better use of it. Where to encrypt, how to encrypt, what to encrypt, and how to decrypt. So these kind of algorithms are available there. And that is also a big challenge to implement. Now here is another auto tire algorithm. It is not TIR tire, but TIER. So tires. So this tiring up level by level. So level by level, we have different algorithms of security, securing the big data, our big data storage systems that keep the data, so we have to secure them. So if I use a pen drive that has different tier, different level of security than my hard disk or SSD or memory. And in cloud too, we have similar tiers. And so the algorithms, what happens is sometimes they fail. So from more secure to less secure, they might be transferring data. At that time, hacking is easy. And then when it goes from low security to high security systems, in between we can hack the data. That's why we need proper algorithms, proper thinking, and engineering in order to protect our data storage. So here are a few names: Jet Encrypt, Protegrity, and now another thing. Oh, Intel. So Intel is no longer king of CPUs. We have other companies' CPUs in place. So AMD. So now that's getting. And then we recently studied about NVIDIA. Yeah, NVIDIA, the video graphics maker, the chip maker. Wow, it bought another company, ARM, in $40 billion. So there is a huge discussion going on. Oh my God, $40 billion in chip. Oh, that means what happened? The NVIDIA graphics system came into physical system. They said that's a huge investment. But the other thing is that those kind of graphics, high performance graphics system, they can also be used in the cloud. So it not necessarily the investment in physical chip system, but also in the cloud system. Because of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, we need very huge storage. That's not possible with our physical disk system. So it's multi-terabyte, gigabyte, petabyte, exabyte, hexabyte, and gigabyte. So yeah, so it's growing. So those $40 billion or $20 billion that we listen, and then LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft for $20 billion. Why LinkedIn was bought? Because that's data. So it's all data. It's all big data. So because of big data is money. And like they say, it's the new fuel, new revolution. So we go to now, after Intel, we go to granular access control. So granular access control, actually it was developed by Oracle. When we studied Oracle during 97, I think, yeah, 96, 97, I forgot. Okay, so when we studied then, we did not know all those granular access control or dot. But after we came into the industry, so then we started learning, these are called access control. This should be authorized. This should not be authorized. And then learning now, we know a bit about those. And it was perfect in Oracle, and it still is. Oracle has so much of granular access control system than any other else. Let's not talk about Microsoft. They are always best in that. Because of Windows access control, we know how tough it is. Only the proper implementation is needed. So on the last line of this slide, so we have Kerberos system. So Kerberos, we have Kerberos security system here. One server will be here, and then whatever request I make, it will validate and then send to the client, and the response is sent to me. So I am safe. Now we have to understand it. Now after Kerberos, so Kerberos is actually, it comes from Greek. So Greek dogs, the security dogs. So security dogs. So yeah, so Kerberos, I think so. Yeah. So after that, we go into ACL. So ACL, when we are using Linux-based system, is mostly used. ACL, access control list. We prepare access control list for this person, this group, Oh, this group. Okay. That group. Oh, okay. This part. Oh, okay, okay. Give him that. Don't give him that. So all those ACL, access control list. Actually, similar thing also exists in Windows. Then we go to ABAC. ABAC means attribute-based access control. So we look at attributes. What attributes are there? Like in Linux-based system, we do what? CSMOD, CSOWN, isn't it? Yeah, we do. Yeah. Otherwise, ATTRIB, attrib minus R. So all those things. So ABAC, see. So attribute-based access system. We have to implement those. Now another is YACLM. Okay. YACLM. Okay. So YACLM. Okay. So it is markup language. Markup language. YAX means extensible, and then okay. ACL means access control list. See. Wow, that's good. So extensible. Okay. So that's a new language for security. So we have to use it also. It is actually being used, and there are several editors that allow us to implement those so that it's easy. Not like beforehand going into each person, and then we can't do that. It's a common thing, and so we need to program it. Sir, next slide, please. Okay, so it's for Nepalese, Nepali and Nepal. So actually, we are also not less in technology or brain or experience or education than rest of the world. So we are totally familiar with the cloud-based system, the technologies, and the security system regarding the database, and analytical tools that we use on to achieve the remote ends. If we look at the big companies of Nepal, big software companies of Nepal, moderate software companies of Nepal, or small software companies of Nepal, those who used big data storage systems in cloud did not fail even when there was lockdown of months due to coronavirus and COVID-19. None failed. Because it's in cloud. You can work it from anywhere, anyhow. It is not going to lose. You can't lose data there. You can't lose anything there. So wherever you are, you can go to Mount Everest Base Camp or Annapurna Base Camp. You can go to Dolpa, Sorolpa, wherever you are. Go and work. So that's the flexibility the technology has given. And so Amazon became $1 trillion company in this pandemic situation, because Amazon is the father of the cloud computing, father of big data storage system, father of whole cloud system, because it needed to sell its books in 2000. That was a small company then. It thought, oh, we have to sell books. So how do we sell? We sell it virtually. So how do we sell it virtually and deliver it practically? Oh, okay, do it like this. Okay, then they made both the systems. So yeah, so that's the technological advantage with them. So that's why we have to store everything in cloud without any precondition. But I have heard that Nepal Rashtra Bank has made rule for the Nepalese banks, cooperatives, to put their data not in the cloud, but here within the Nepal itself. Yeah, that's another target for us. Yeah, to create a local cloud system. That's cool. But if we look at the purely technological viewpoint, a cloud is always secure. That's the main thing. And data storage systems, like I said, there are multiple, hundreds of systems across Amazon or Alibaba or Microsoft or Google. And then we have to decide appropriately depending upon our cost, manpower, availability, our bandwidth, and everything. And then data needs. Actually, data drives the technology. It's not that software builds data, it's data building software. That's why Facebook was nothing for many years. We thought, it's not used. We used to use i5. But data drive Facebook to become here, and i5 is gone. Similar with other dating sites, you can see. So it's not about dating or corresponding or chatting. It's about data. It's all data analytics. Whatever we do, that drives the future and the technology. Okay, so let's start discussions. Question, answer, QA. Ask me anything. Timing.